Frankly, these outdated methods are holding our students back. It's time to disrupt the status quo with real innovation, not sentimental nostalgia. Julian Thorne's voice, sharp and dismissive, sliced through the stifling air of the Northwood High School auditorium. Eleanor Vance, a silent observer in the back row, felt the familiar prick of injustice as his gaze, fleeting and contemptuous, swept over the assembled teachers. What would you do if someone dismissed your life's work as outdated methods, based on nothing more than their own slick, unproven theories? It was Wednesday morning, 8:15 a.m., in Eleanor Vance's English classroom. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing above worn wooden desks. The air smelled of old books and faint chalk, a comforting aroma to Eleanor, who at 58 moved with the unhurried grace of someone deeply rooted in her purpose. "Who can tell me about the power of narrative in shaping identity?" she asked, her voice warm and inviting, as her students leaned forward, eager. The smartboard, a district-mandated upgrade that often flickered, displayed a quote from Toni Morrison. Despite the chipped paint and textbooks held together with tape, this room hummed with genuine curiosity, a testament to Eleanor's ability to conjure magic from limited resources. Later, during her prep period, Eleanor sat at her desk, grading a stack of essays. Each paper told a story, not just of literary analysis, but of the struggles and triumphs of the young minds who wrote them. She knew their home lives, their dreams, their daily battles against systemic inequities far better than any tech CEO with a flashy presentation. The upcoming district meeting, where more new solutions would undoubtedly be proposed, weighed on her. Solutions that often felt like band-aids on a gaping wound, designed by those who had never truly walked these halls. Miles away, downtown, Julian Thorne surveyed the city from his glass-walled office at InnovateEd Solutions. His world was one of gleaming chrome, minimalist design, and an uninterrupted view of progress. "We're not just selling software, Brenda," he told his young assistant, waving a dismissive hand at her minor concern about user feedback. "We're disrupting an archaic system. Our adaptive learning platform is a paradigm shift. It's about scalability, data-driven outcomes, and maximizing educational ROI. The government contract is practically in the bag." He adjusted the cuff of his expensive suit, a confident smirk playing on his lips. That evening, in the quiet solitude of her small apartment, Eleanor Vance traded her teacher's glasses for a pair of readers. Her old laptop glowed on a cluttered coffee table, illuminating her focused face. On the screen, a blog interface. The Edu Watchdog. It read, bold and anonymous. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, dissecting a recent policy proposal with surgical precision, exposing its superficiality and potential harm to underserved communities. "Real education isn't about profit margins or buzzwords," she typed, her words gaining momentum. "It's about human connection, critical thought, and equitable access." She hit publish, the digital ghost of her critique, now unleashed into the vast online realm, a silent but potent force. Principal Evans's office at Northwood High was a testament to a life spent in service, yet perpetually overwhelmed. Stacks of textbooks vied for space with grant applications, and a coffee mug, long empty, bore the faint imprint of forgotten lipstick. Eleanor Vance sat across from her, a calm anchor in the swirling paperwork. "Eleanor," Principal Evans began, her voice strained, running a hand through her neatly coiffed but visibly tired hair. "This InnovateEd contract, it's everything. New textbooks, computers that don't crash every other day, even a chance at fixing the gym roof." She leaned forward, her eyes pleading. "They want a senior teacher to be present at the district meeting tomorrow, someone who understands the asterisk real classroom needs. Will you go?" Eleanor met her gaze, a quiet understanding passing between them. "Of course, Principal," she replied, her voice steady. The stakes, silent yet immense, now rested squarely on her shoulders. Later that afternoon, after her last bell, Eleanor sat in her own classroom, the sunlight streaming through the dusty blinds. The familiar scent of old paper and chalk dust filled the air as she hunched over her worn laptop. Principal Evans' words echoed in her mind. "Everything." Eleanor opened her browser, the familiar glow illuminating her focused face. She typed InnovateEd solutions into the search bar. Reviews popped up, slick corporate videos, glowing testimonials from private schools, but also a growing murmur of concern. Teachers in underfunded districts spoke of exorbitant licensing fees and platforms that required high-speed internet often absent in their students' homes. Eleanor meticulously copied data points into a fresh notebook, highlighting the disparities, the hollow promises. Asterisk, another silver bullet designed by someone who's never stepped foot in a real classroom. Asterisk, she thought, a spark of resolve igniting. These were precisely the points that would fuel her next blog post. Miles away, in a downtown skyscraper, Julian Thorne paced his sleek, minimalist office, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop to his ambition. InnovateEd isn't just a platform, it's a paradigm shift, he declared, rehearsing his pitch to a silent marketing team. We're disrupting antiquated educational models, leveraging AI for personalized learning outcomes. A young assistant timidly raised a hand. Sir, about the feedback from the pilot program in... Julian cut him off with a dismissive wave. Minor teething issues. Irrelevant. This government contract is ironclad. A done deal. My connections ensure that. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar agreement that will revolutionize public education and secure our legacy. He smirked, adjusting the cuff of his expensive suit. In his world, the only opinions that mattered were those that aligned with his vision of inevitable success. The next morning, the district education office conference room hummed with a sterile corporate energy. Glass walls offered a panoramic, impersonal view of the city. Eleanor Vance, in her sensible tweed jacket, felt the stark contrast to Northwood's vibrant, chaotic classrooms. Principal Evans, looking even more anxious, gripped her worn briefcase. Tech executives in tailored suits mingled, their conversations filled with buzzwords Eleanor barely recognized. Then, Julian Thorne entered, a confident stride eating up the polished floor. He moved like he owned the room, his expensive suit a beacon of self-assurance. His eyes swept over the assembled educators, barely registering Eleanor or Principal Evans before he settled into his designated seat at the head of the polished mahogany table, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. The air thickened with unspoken anticipation. The stage was set. Julian Thorne stood before the assembled district officials and school board members, a sleek, almost ethereal glow emanating from the massive projection screen behind him. His presentation, titled InnovateEd, Bridging the Digital Divide with Tomorrow's Learning, was a masterclass in corporate spectacle. Slides flashed with vibrant infographics and buzzwords, gamified learning pathways, AI-driven adaptive analytics, personalized student engagement at scale. He gestured confidently, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the worn cardigans and practical blazers of the educators in the room. Eleanor Vance watched, her expression a careful mask of polite attention. Internally, a different narrative unfolded. Each slick slide, each confident pronouncement about disrupting traditional pedagogy, felt like a slap to the face of every underpaid, overworked teacher battling daily realities. Julian spoke of seamless digital integration, while Eleanor thought of her students who shared one ancient laptop between 3 siblings, or whose only internet access was the patchy Wi-Fi from a distant library parking lot. His vision was a gleaming, futuristic city floating above the clouds, utterly disconnected from the muddy, uneven ground where her students lived and learned. The presentation concluded with a flourish, Julian basking in the polite applause. "Any questions for Mr. Thorne?" the district superintendent asked, a practiced smile on her face. A few hands went up, mostly from board members asking about budgets and implementation timelines. Then, Eleanor Vance's hand rose, her movement quiet, deliberate. "Ms. Vance, from Northwood High." The superintendent acknowledged. Eleanor stood, her voice calm but clear, cutting through the residual corporate hum. "Mr. Thorne, your platform relies heavily on consistent internet access and personal devices. Many of our students, particularly those from low-income households, face significant disparities in these areas. How does InnovateEd specifically address this foundational challenge, beyond merely suggesting school infrastructure upgrades?" Julian's confident posture faltered. He cleared his throat, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. A very pertinent question, Ms. Vance. InnovateEd believes in a holistic ecosystem approach. Our platform is designed to be highly adaptable, and we anticipate that district-level partnerships with local ISPs will mitigate these infrastructure gaps. We provide the tools. The community provides the conduit. His answer was a beautifully wrapped empty box, and Eleanor's calm gaze remained fixed on him, unblinking. Julian Thorne quickly pivoted, sensing the slight shift in the room's atmosphere. Ultimately, he continued, his voice regaining its condescending edge, innovation requires a forward-thinking mindset. Teachers need to embrace these advancements, rather than dwelling on the logistical minutiae of infrastructure, which, frankly, isn't within their purview. He aimed the last part directly at Eleanor, a dismissive wave of his hand accompanying the jab. Our solutions are about empowering the future, not getting bogged down in outdated methods or concerns. Eleanor felt a familiar burn in her chest, the sting of being dismissed not just as a teacher, but as an intellectual capable of understanding real policy. Her jaw tightened, a subtle clench of muscle that only she would feel. But her composure held. She simply nodded, a slow, deliberate movement that conveyed not agreement, but a profound, silent understanding of the battle ahead. She knew Julian had just underestimated her, again, and she knew exactly what she was going to do about it. Late that night, the only sound in Eleanor Vance's apartment was the rhythmic click-clack of her old laptop keyboard. The day's frustrations, the patronizing tone, the corporate jargon that masked a profound ignorance of real classroom needs. It all fueled her fingers. On her screen, the familiar interface of the Edu Watchdog blog glowed. She typed furiously, weaving Julian Thorne's vague answers about holistic ecosystems and community conduits into a scathing, yet meticulously researched, critique. She didn't name Julian, but the target was clear: InnovateEd solutions. She referenced studies on digital equity, highlighted the insidious nature of solutions that exacerbate existing disparities, and questioned the ethical implications of AI in education without proper oversight. This wasn't just venting, it was strategic. Her words were carefully chosen, designed to resonate with policymakers and concerned citizens alike. With a deep breath, Eleanor clicked. Publish. Back. The digital ink was dry. Her quiet weapon was now deployed. Across the digital ether, a ripple began. From obscure education forums to bustling social media feeds, the Edu Watchdog's latest post about the superficial promises of InnovateEd solutions began to spread. Screenshots of Eleanor's incisive paragraphs, highlighting the company's glaring blind spots, appeared on Twitter and Facebook. Comments poured in. Finally, someone is calling them out. This is exactly what we've been saying. The post climbed the trending charts within niche education circles. By morning, a major education news aggregator known for its deep dives into policy featured a headline: Anonymous critique raises red flags on InnovateEd's government contracts. Are tech solutions ignoring basic needs? The ripple had become a wave, an unseen force gathering momentum, challenging the carefully constructed narrative of a powerful tech company. The Internet, a tool Julian Thorne championed, was now subtly turning against him, orchestrated by a veteran teacher he had so easily dismissed. Meanwhile, in his gleaming downtown office, Julian Thorne remained oblivious. His young assistant, Maya, tentatively approached him, a tablet in her hand. Mr. Thorne, there's been some chatter online about InnovateEd and the district contract. Julian waved a dismissive hand, not looking up from his positive press clippings. Online chatter, Maya? Is it positive? Excellent. If it's not, it's irrelevant. We're disrupting education, not winning popularity contests with internet trolls. He chuckled, a self-satisfied sound. Focus on the big picture. That Northwood High contract is practically signed. Our government connections are ironclad. This is a done deal, Maya. Just some noise from the periphery. He scrolled through an article praising InnovateEd's visionary leadership. Completely confident in his insulated world, utterly blind to the growing digital storm Eleanor had unleashed. That afternoon, Principal Evans sat in her office, a frown etched across her brow as she stared at her phone. She looked up as Eleanor entered. Eleanor, I just got off the phone with the district office. They're citing unforeseen delays in the InnovateEd contract approval process. And they mentioned some external factors are causing them to reconsider certain aspects. Principal Evans sighed, running a hand through her hair. I don't know what's going on. 1 minute it was a sure thing. The next, it's like someone turned a spotlight on every single potential flaw. Do you have any idea what they might be talking about? Eleanor offered a reassuring smile, her eyes holding a knowing glint. Sometimes, Principal, a little light can be a very good thing. It helps people see what's truly there. She didn't elaborate, letting Principal Evans's vague worries hang in the air, a testament to the blog's unseen power. Back in her apartment that evening, Eleanor Vance was not just content. She was invigorated. The vague anxieties Principal Evans had shared confirmed it. The Edu watchdog was making an impact. Her quiet critique had landed. Now, it was time to amplify. She opened her laptop, a strategic outline already forming in her mind. This next post wouldn't just be a critique, it would be a call to action. A detailed breakdown of how InnovateEd's proposal would actively harm marginalized students, citing specific clauses and financial projections. She'd also meticulously prepare a list of data points, irrefutable evidence she would bring up in the asterisk next time's district meeting. This wasn't just about winning an argument. It was about ensuring her students, her school, got the resources they truly needed. Eleanor's focused eyes scanned her notes, a quiet power emanating from her, a strategist preparing for the decisive battle. The next day, Julian Thorne's carefully constructed calm shattered. His phone rang, an urgent, official tone he immediately recognized. Thorne here. His voice was sharp, impatient. Julian, it's David from the district office. We have a problem with the InnovateEd contract. There's been unexpected scrutiny. Legal is flagging several concerns. Julian's face reddened. Scrutiny? What scrutiny? The deal was airtight. It appears there's been significant online sentiment. Very detailed, very critical. It's causing considerable discomfort amongst the board. Online sentiment? Julian scoffed, though a tremor of unease ran through him. Who is this? Some anonymous blogger? What do they know about scalable solutions? He demanded, his voice rising. I need names, David. Who is behind these rumors? But David's answers remained vague, speaking only of public opinion and expert analysis. Julian slammed his phone down, the sound echoing in his pristine office. A sense of control, once absolute, was now slipping through his fingers like sand. The district education office conference room, usually a tableau of muted efficiency, now thrummed with an almost palpable tension. Every chair was filled, not just by the usual district officials, but by several stern-faced school board members, their presence a stark indicator of the gravity of the meeting. The air conditioning hummed, but it did little to dissipate the heavy atmosphere. Julian Thorne, seated at the head of the polished oak table, looked noticeably irritated, his expensive suit doing little to hide the subtle fidget of his fingers on the table. Across from him, Eleanor Vance sat composed, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her expression unreadable but attentive. Principal Evans beside her shifted uneasily, her eyes darting between Julian and the board members, sensing the high stakes. Whispers circulated, hushed and anxious, before the formal opening remarks brought a brittle silence to the room. All eyes, implicitly, were on Julian. Julian Thorne cleared his throat, a sound that grated in the tense silence. He began his presentation, a defensive spin on the InnovateEd Solutions proposal. There's been some noise, he began, a dismissive wave of his hand sweeping through the air. Some anonymous online criticisms regarding our efficacy and financial models. Let me be clear. These are uninformed ramblings, a distraction from the real progress we're poised to make. He flashed a forced, practiced smile at the board. Then his gaze flickered to Eleanor. In his mind, she was just another one of those small-minded educators, resistant to change, clinging to outdated methods, probably the type to vent online. He believed he was effortlessly controlling the narrative, brushing aside dissent with the sweep of his corporate hand. As Julian concluded his defensive monologue, inviting questions, Eleanor Vance slowly raised her hand. Her movement was deliberate, unhurried, a quiet challenge in the room. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. "You mentioned uninformed ramblings. Could you perhaps clarify your projected 5-year ROI model, specifically how it accounts for the documented 30% student attrition rate in similar pilot programs in communities with less than 70% broadband access, as detailed in the Digital Divide in Education Report 2022 edition, and the subsequent policy loopholes in your implementation strategy regarding federal..." Julian Thorne's confident posture faltered. His eyes, usually sharp, flickered with confusion, then irritation. He opened his mouth, then closed it, clearly unprepared for such a precise, data-driven assault. "Ma'am, I believe those figures are taken out of context," he stammered, his face beginning to redden. He tried to cut her off, to reclaim control. "We're focusing on innovation, not dwelling on hypothetical scenarios." But Eleanor held his gaze, unyielding, her intellectual challenge hanging heavy in the air. Julian Thorne, his carefully constructed facade crumbling, leaned into the microphone, his voice dripping with condescension. "Listen, ma'am," he said, his tone turning sharply personal. "I don't know what kind of dusty blog you've been reading to get your facts, but we're talking about real policy here, not some anonymous online ramblings from an armchair critic." He gestured dismissively towards Eleanor, as if swatting away an annoying fly. "Perhaps you should stick to teaching English where opinions are subjective, and leave the strategic, forward-thinking decisions to those of us who understand the future of education." The words hung in the air, thick with insult. A collective intake of breath rippled through the room. Principal Evans flinched, her hand instinctively reaching out as if to calm Eleanor, but Eleanor remained perfectly still. A familiar burn of injustice tightened in Eleanor's chest, a feeling she'd encountered countless times in her career. But this time, it was different. This time, the arrogance wasn't just insulting, it was ignorant, and it jeopardized the very students she fought for. The room fell into a shocked silence, all eyes now fixed on Eleanor. Julian, oblivious in his rage, smirked, certain he had put the little teacher in her place. Eleanor Vance remained calm, her composure a stark contrast to Julian's flushed face. She slowly reached into her pocket, pulling out her phone. With a deliberate, unhurried movement, she connected it to the conference room's projector. The large screen behind Julian, which had moments ago displayed his glossy, hollow promises, now lit up with a familiar interface. The bold header, unmistakable, read, "The Edu Watchdog." Below it, the very data points and policy loopholes she had just cited in her question were prominently displayed, complete with links to official reports and her incisive analysis. Julian Thorne's eyes widened, his jaw dropping as he recognized the blog that had been causing him so much online chatter. He began to stammer, a strangled sound catching in his throat. Eleanor's voice, now infused with an unmistakable authority that commanded every ear in the room, cut through his pathetic attempts. "Mr. Thorne," she stated, her gaze unwavering, "you're looking at the author of that dusty blog. And yes, we are talking about real policy here, policy I've been shaping for years." As if to punctuate her statement, she navigated to her personal LinkedIn profile, projecting it onto the screen. It detailed a distinguished career, not just as a veteran English teacher, but as a respected education policy consultant, a published author on educational equity, and a key advisor on several state-level initiatives. Gasps rippled through the room. The power dynamic didn't just shift, it violently inverted, leaving Julian Thorne exposed and utterly speechless. Julian's face, which had been crimson moments ago, now drained of all color, turning a sickly shade of white. He clutched the podium, his knuckles stark against the polished wood. That's impossible," he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. You're a teacher, you teach English." He tried to backtrack, to deny the undeniable, but his words were hollow, incoherent, lost in the sudden, weighty silence of the room. The school board members, initially stunned, now exchanged sharp, disapproving glances, their expressions morphing from surprise to open disgust, directed squarely at Julian. One of the senior board members, a woman with silver hair and an unflappable demeanor, rose slowly. "I believe we need to take an immediate recess," she announced, her voice firm, "to digest this new information. Mr. Thorne, perhaps you should step outside." "Julian," eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and panic, could only nod mutely, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. Eleanor watched him, a silent, knowing triumph in her steady gaze. During the impromptu recess, district officials and school board members immediately gravitated towards Eleanor. Gone was the dismissive air. In its place was genuine respect and keen interest. Eleanor, unruffled, calmly and expertly articulated the profound flaws in InnovateEd's proposal. Their model, she explained, her voice clear and precise, while superficially appealing, is built on an assumption of universal digital access that simply doesn't exist in many of our communities. It presents significant financial risks, promising high ROI that previous studies, including those documented on the Edu Watchdog, have shown to be unsustainable without substantial, often hidden infrastructure costs. She then pivoted, proposing alternative, community-based solutions, emphasizing local tech partnerships and teacher-led development programs. Officials listened intently, some taking furious notes, others nodding in agreement. Principal Evans stood proudly beside Eleanor, a wide, relieved smile on her face, watching her colleagues save their school with pure, unadulterated intellect. When the board reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. Julian Thorne was nowhere in sight, having been politely but firmly escorted out during the recess. The senior district official, now addressing the room, wasted no time. After careful consideration, and in light of the compelling expert testimony presented today, she stated, glancing pointedly at Eleanor, "The District Education Office has decided to place the InnovateEd Solutions contract on indefinite hold, pending a comprehensive re-evaluation of its suitability and ethical implications." Essentially, the contract is terminated. A wave of quiet relief washed over the educators in the room. The official then added, "Mr. Thorne's services will no longer be required for this discussion." Eleanor exchanged a knowing, triumphant glance with Principal Evans, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. The arrogant tech titan had been vanquished, not by brute force, but by quiet authority and undeniable intellect. In the hallway outside the conference room, Principal Evans rushed forward, her face alight with a mixture of relief and profound admiration. She embraced Eleanor tightly. "Eleanor, thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved us. You truly saved Northwood." She pulled back, her eyes shining. "And the Edu Watchdog? I had absolutely no idea. All this time, fighting for us, in plain sight." Eleanor smiled, a soft, humble expression. "It's what we do, Principal. We fight for our students, for our schools." The weight of the battle had lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment and the warmth of genuine gratitude. Eleanor, ever the quiet force, had done what was necessary, and the impact was undeniable. What happens when a titan of industry, brimming with unearned confidence, faces the public reckoning brought on by an underestimated intellect? Days after the district meeting, the polished glass walls of Julian Thorne's InnovateEd Solutions office felt less like a fortress and more like a fragile cage. The city skyline, usually a symbol of his dominion, now seemed to mock him, reflecting the crumpled newspaper on his desk. InnovateEd contracts under scrutiny following anonymous policy criticisms. One headline blared. Julian sat slumped, the expensive fabric of his suit feeling like a straitjacket. His lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Mr. Davies, spoke with a grave efficiency that cut through Julian's lingering disbelief. "The State Education Department has officially rescinded the initial Memorandum of Understanding. Multiple smaller districts are following suit. The public's sentiment, fueled by the Edu Watchdog, and now picked up by major news outlets, has created an untenable environment for any government partnership." Julian stared at the pristine, untouched coffee on his desk. "But it was an anonymous blog," he stammered, the arrogance gone from his voice, replaced by a hollow confusion. "How could a blog?" Mr. Davies merely raised an eyebrow. "It wasn't just a blog, Mr. Thorne. It was an exceptionally well-researched, meticulously argued platform, written by someone with deep, undeniable expertise. And now, everyone knows exactly who that someone is. Your reputation, I'm afraid, is significantly damaged." The weight of those words, the cold, hard reality, pressed down on Julian. This wasn't just a lost contract. It was the unraveling of his carefully constructed empire of hubris. While Julian Thorne's world crumbled, A different kind of foundation was being laid at Northwood High. Weeks later, the school buzzed with a renewed, vibrant energy. The stale air of desperation had been replaced by a palpable sense of hope. Principal Evans, her shoulders visibly lighter, stood before the teaching staff, her voice clear and strong. "Thanks to the incredible advocacy we saw recently," she announced, a knowing glance passing between her and Eleanor, "we've secured emergency funding, redirected from other, less effective proposals. We're launching the Northwood Community Learning Initiative next month." A ripple of excited murmurs spread through the room. This initiative wasn't about flashy, unproven tech. It was about tangible resources. Upgraded library access, after-school tutoring programs staffed by community volunteers, and a dedicated fund for classroom supplies. Students in Eleanor's English class were debating classic texts with a new set of well-worn but well-loved paperbacks, not glitchy e-readers. Teachers felt empowered, their ideas finally heard and valued. The scent of fresh paint lingered in the hallways, and the once flickering smartboard in Eleanor's room had been replaced with a reliable, interactive display. This wasn't just a school anymore. It was a beacon, a testament to what happens when genuine needs are prioritized over corporate profit. Eleanor Vance moved through her newly invigorated classroom, a quiet observer of the blossoming hope. Her students, now armed with proper resources, engaged with a fervent curiosity she hadn't seen in years. During a break, a younger teacher, Ms. Chen, approached her, a stack of curriculum proposals clutched nervously in her hands. "Ms. Vance, do you have a moment?" Ms. Chen began, her tone respectful, almost deferential. "I'm working on the new digital literacy curriculum, and I keep thinking about your insights. Specifically, how you always emphasize the human element in policy, not just the tech." Eleanor smiled gently, the corners of her eyes crinkling. "Of course, Ms. Chen. Come, sit." She gestured to a student desk. Technology is a tool, not a solution in itself. It's about understanding the learner, their environment, their unique challenges. A truly effective policy considers the ground-level reality, not just the glossy brochure. Ms. Chen nodded, scribbling furiously. "It's like you wrote about on, well, the need for authentic engagement, not just data points." Eleanor offered a thoughtful pause, a subtle acknowledgement of the unspoken. "Exactly. Good ideas can come from anywhere, Ms. Chen. The key is to listen. Truly listen to those on the front lines, to the students, to the teachers. Because that's where the real expertise lies." Ms. Chen looked up, her eyes shining with newfound clarity. Eleanor's quiet power wasn't just acknowledged now, it was sought after, a guiding light for a new generation of educators. The quiet hum of her old laptop was a familiar comfort in Eleanor's apartment late that evening. But the numbers on the screen were anything but quiet. Her blog, the Edu Watchdog, had exploded. Analytics showed a massive surge in readership, not just from concerned parents and educators, but from policymakers, think tanks, and even major news organizations. The comments section was a vibrant forum of debate and shared experiences, a testament to the power of a single, informed voice. An unread email notification blinked, its subject line formal, "Inquiry regarding education policy expertise." Eleanor clicked it open. It was from the office of a prominent state senator, a key figure on the education committee. "Dear Edu Watchdog," the email began, "your recent analyses regarding equitable access and pedagogical efficacy have come to our attention. We are deeply impressed by the depth of your research and the clarity of your arguments. We would be honored if you would consider providing anonymous consultation on upcoming legislative initiatives." Eleanor leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. Her platform, born of frustration and a deep love for her students, had become a force, a silent, intellectual sentinel guarding the future of education. The responsibility was immense, but so was the satisfaction. She was shaping policy, not from a boardroom, but from her quiet apartment, armed with nothing but truth and intellect. Months later, the glare of the spotlight Julian Thorne once craved had faded, replaced by the softer, more focused lighting of a small, local tech conference. Gone was the swagger, the expensive suit now replaced by a well-fitting but unostentatious blazer. Julian stood on a modest stage, presenting to a small audience of local entrepreneurs and educators. His voice, once booming with unearned confidence, was noticeably subdued, almost cautious. "At InnovateEd, we're pivoting," he explained, a flicker of genuine introspection in his eyes. "We're shifting from a top-down disruptor mentality to a collaborative, listener approach. I've learned the hard way that true innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum of data and algorithms. It happens in classrooms. It happens when you actually listen to teachers, to students, to communities." He even referenced past mistakes and the quote-unquote importance of ground-level input, a stark contrast to his previous dismissal of anything not quantifiable by an algorithm. Was it a complete transformation? Perhaps not yet, but the arrogance that had once defined him was chipped away, leaving behind a man who, at the very least, had begun to understand that respect wasn't a given, but something earned through genuine engagement and humility. The applause was polite, not enthusiastic, but it was applause nonetheless. A nascent seed of genuine change, planted in the bitter soil of public humiliation. Back in her brightly lit classroom, Eleanor Vance stood before her students, her gaze sweeping across their eager faces. Today's lesson wasn't about literature, not directly. It was about life, about power, and about the quiet strength of intellect. "Class," she began, her voice calm but resonant. "We often talk about heroes in stories. But sometimes, the most impactful heroes aren't the loudest, or the ones with the flashiest titles. Sometimes they're the ones who simply observe, who think critically, and who refuse to let others' assumptions define their expertise." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "I once knew of a situation," Eleanor continued, a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips, "where someone, a teacher much like myself, was completely dismissed. Their practical wisdom, their deep understanding of what was truly needed, was brushed aside by someone who thought their fancy technology and big words made them superior. But that teacher had a secret weapon, their intellect, their dedication to the truth, and a platform for their voice. And when the moment came, that quiet voice, armed with facts and integrity, brought down an entire empire of arrogance." Her students watched, captivated. "The lesson, my young scholars, is this. Never let anyone put you in a box because of how you look or what they think they know about you. Your voice, your perspective, your intellect. These are your most powerful tools. Speak your truth. Stand up for what's right. And always, always remember that true wisdom and true power often reside in the most unexpected places." The bell rang, but the students lingered, a profound sense of inspiration etched on their faces. Eleanor had not only saved her school, she had ignited a fire in the next generation, a legacy of intellect and quiet authority. Eleanor Vance's story, much like the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights in a busy emergency department, transcends the confines of a single classroom or a district meeting. It's a powerful narrative about how true expertise, often disguised by appearance or humble station, is frequently overlooked. How many times have we seen wisdom dismissed because it didn't come wrapped in a designer suit or a prestigious title? Prejudice, whether conscious or unconscious, blinds us to the very solutions and insights we desperately need. Eleanor taught us that intellect is not loud. It is profound, it is observant, and it is a force that can reshape policy, one carefully crafted sentence at a time. What would happen if we all embraced the quiet authority within us? If we refused to let someone else's assumptions about our background, our age, or our profession silence the valuable truths we hold? Eleanor's journey reminds us that every person holds a unique perspective, a crucial piece of the puzzle that often goes unheard in the clamor of self-proclaimed experts. Your voice, your experience, your intellect, they are your most potent weapons against ignorance and injustice. Don't let anyone put you in a box based on how you look or what they think they know about you. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for what's right. Because every voice has value, and sometimes the most influential one is the one you least expect. If you found inspiration in Eleanor's quiet revolution, if you believe in the power of intellect and justice served, then make sure to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that celebrate the underestimated and the wise. And we want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated because of your perceived role or appearance? Have you ever had to prove your expertise when someone wrongly assumed your place? Share your story in the comments below. Let your experience be a testament to the enduring power of respect and intellect. Months later, the glow of Eleanor Vance's old laptop still illuminated her apartment late into the night. Her blog, the Edu Watchdog, had not only survived the InnovateEd fallout, but had flourished, becoming a respected, if anonymous, authority in education policy circles. She was actively collaborating with other education advocates online, her insights now sought after by government officials, albeit through intermediaries. When a prestigious National Education Foundation nominated the Edu Watchdog for an award for outstanding contributions, Eleanor, with a quiet smile, politely declined. For her, the reward wasn't the accolade, it was the ripple effect, the tangible change she saw in classrooms, and, most importantly, in the minds of her students. Her influence was growing, but her persona remained humble, her focus unwavering. The quiet power of collective action, for the greater good. The ripple effect of Eleanor's advocacy was felt keenly within the district education office. In a new policy meeting, the sterile conference room now hummed with a different kind of energy. District officials, once swayed by flashy presentations, were now discussing new initiatives directly addressing issues that the Edu Watchdog had meticulously highlighted. Disparities in internet access, the need for culturally relevant curricula, and community-led pedagogical approaches. Principal Evans, her face no longer etched with worry but radiating a newfound confidence, contributed meaningfully to the discussion. She spoke with conviction, citing the success of Northwood's new programs, unaware that the expert analysis guiding their district-wide transformation had come from her own English teacher. It was a testament to the unseen, yet undeniable power of Eleanor's intellect. Meanwhile, in a smaller, more modest office downtown, Julian Thorne was forging a new path. InnovateEd Solutions, now rebranded and downsized, focused on ethical ed tech, a name that still made him wince slightly at the memory of his past hubris. He was seen actively listening, truly listening, to a junior partner's feedback on user testing with real teachers in underfunded schools. The gleaming glass walls were gone, replaced by whiteboards filled with collaborative ideas. "We made mistakes in the past," Julian admitted, his voice noticeably devoid of its former swagger. "Big ones. We forgot about the ground-level input. The people who actually do the work. That won't happen again." There was a cautious optimism in his eyes, a glimmer of genuine change that suggested he might, finally, be learning the lesson Eleanor had so forcefully taught him. Back at Northwood High, Eleanor's classroom remained a beacon of critical thought. One afternoon, a familiar face appeared in her doorway. Jamal, a former student, now a bright-eyed college intern majoring in public policy. "Ms. Vance," he began, a shy reverence in his voice. "Your English class. How you always made us question everything. It inspired me. I want to work in education policy, make a real difference." Eleanor smiled, a warmth spreading through her. She shared subtle wisdom, not about blogs or anonymous influence, but about the enduring power of a well-reasoned argument, the necessity of deep understanding, and the quiet strength required to influence change from within. Her legacy wasn't just in the policies she shaped, but in the minds she ignited, fostering a new generation of intellectual justice seekers. Late one night, Eleanor stood at her apartment window, gazing at the city lights. The quiet hum of the metropolis mirrored the silent battles she had fought and won. The burden of anonymity was real, the weight of wisdom, a constant companion. Yet, there was profound satisfaction in knowing that her intellect, once dismissed, had steered a school away from folly, inspired a principle, and even nudged a corporate titan towards humility. True power, she mused, wasn't in titles or public acclaim. It was in the quiet, persistent pursuit of truth, in the strategic deployment of knowledge, and in the unwavering belief that every person, regardless of their perceived status, deserved respect and the opportunity to be heard. It was in the unseen hand that guided change, for the betterment of all. Eleanor Vance's story serves as a powerful reminder that in a world too often quick to judge, true expertise and wisdom can emerge from the most unexpected places. It's a call to build a world that listens, a world where every voice is valued, every perspective considered, and where collaboration triumphs over condescension. Imagine the progress we could make, the injustices we could right, if we simply learned to look beyond the surface, to truly hear one another, and to value the quiet strength of intellect wherever it may reside. The next time someone tries to put you in a box based on how you look, or what they think they know about you, remember Eleanor Vance. Remember that intellect is the most powerful weapon against discrimination. As Eleanor herself might say, respect isn't given, it's earned. And sometimes, it's earned in the quiet depths of a well-researched argument, not in the loudest room. Standard YouTube end screen with links to subscribe, watch next video, and join community.